Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Bite Size Content's first video. Hopefully, you are all having a great day because I know I am. And if you're having a bad day, hopefully, this video could cheer you up a little bit. Now, in today's video, we're going to be talking about one of my cousins and his friend who started a whole boxing rink in high school without getting caught. And no joke, no scam, make sure you hit that subscribe button or you will get beat up by one of the contestants in the fights. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Hopefully you enjoy.
Now, high school was a funny way of making you feel broke. Even if your parents technically provided everything, there's still the lunch money gap, the sneakers gap, for example, things like designer, Balenciaga, all of the stuff these people have nowadays, and the social status gap. And the sheer invisible aura of wealth that surrounds certain kids is like a golden halo. My cousin and his friend Sammy, they had none of that. Their wallets were empty, backpacks half empty, and they had constant hunger, not just for food, but for any kind of freedom money could buy. And it wasn't about luxury cars or designer hoodies. Even a couple extra dollars for a snack or a packed gum felt like a small victory for them too. And Sammy, he tried to. He's. I'm so sorry. Sammy thrived in that broke chaos. Sammy had this uncanny ability to turn despair into excitement. Most kids would mope around or complain about being broke, but not him. He treated it like a challenge. He was always bouncing between schemes like selling exclusive bottled water straight from the bathroom tap, which he marketed as artificial hydration somehow. I don't even know how people bought that, offering to sell homework answers for 50 cents a page, or even tried to charge kids for motivational speeches between classes. Imagine being one of those kids that are buying a motivational speech between classes. That's right there how you know that you've hit rock bottom. It didn't come from me. But most of his ideas crashed and burned. But the audacity, but the oh, wow, I don't even know what I'm doing. But the audacity to make them entertaining and occasionally, sometimes surprisingly profitable. I admired his reckless creativity. I'm not gonna lie. It's it's what he does. Even if it got him and my cousin in a little bit of trouble. Now, one great Tuesday afternoon, when my cousin and Sammy were sitting in their usual corner in the cafeteria, my cousin's tray held a sandwich that was 90% bread and some sad, unidentifiable meat, and Sammy had a half-stolen bag of chips, licking the soft of his fingers while chewing gum loudly like a tiny drum. The cafeteria buzzed with unusual chaos kids shouting, trays clattering, and teachers yelling over the announcements over stuff we don't even know what it was about. And then out of nowhere, Sammy leaned in and whispered with a serious voice, "Bryson, we need to start a boxing ring." My cousin stared at him like he just grown a second head. A boxing ring in school? What are we doing here? The thought was ridiculous, dangerous, and surprisingly brilliant. Kids fought all the time anyway. Why would we be the bad guys for profiting off their fighting? Hallway scuffles, class disagreements, lunchtime arguments. They bet on everything from whose pencil would break to how long someone could balance a tray. Why not? Why should we not organize it, control it, or profit from it? And that's exactly what we're gonna do. I, l- my cousin laughed. Of course, he laughed. It's a crazy idea at first, but then my cousin noticed the sparkle in Sammy's eyes, that glint that screamed, "I'm serious, and you better be too." And deep down, my cousin knew he was right. This could most definitely work. Two broke kids desperate for money, using all the natural chaos of high school to our advantage. The idea was simple. In theory, find a hidden space, draw a ring, organize fights, and collect that money. But as my cousin stared at Sammy pacing and chewing gum, my cousin realized it wasn't going to be as simple as he thought. It was going to be a full-on planned out operation. And my cousin and Sammy spent the rest of the lunch brainstorming. Sammy's plans came in bursts of energy, scribbled notes of napkins, enthusiastic gestures, muttered odds and payouts. I started drawing mental diagrams of spaces that we could use, like, for instance, the corner behind the lockers, the unused bathroom hallway, the empty gym when no one's around. And we discussed fight types as well, from lightweight scrappers to middleweight brawlers, all the way to the hypothetical heavyweight champions. Okay, listen in, because this is about to get juicy. Okay, Sammy said, chewing gum loudly. We need rules, safety rules, betting rules, and most importantly, mob boss rules. And my cousin said, mob boss rules? Raising an eyebrow. Yeah, yeah, Sammy said, snapping his gum. You know, loyalty, hierarchy, respect, all that jazz. People know, people have to know we're in charge, and if someone tries to cheat or start drama, they'll have to deal with us. My cousin laughed, talking about something. He's 15. We're 15. How would we do that? How would we start a whole mob boss at the age of 15 years old? And then Sammy said, exactly, this is why we are untouchable. He replied. You know, he was grinning like he just solved world hunger. You know, he was feeling that. He was feeling like he was the one. By the end of the lunch, two broke kids had a fully fledged empire forming on the cafeteria table between the stale pizza slices, powdered chocolate milk. The idea was ridiculous, and perfect. I felt my cousins felt a rush of excitement. Maybe, just maybe, my cousin and Sammy could pull this off. We don't know yet. Our first step was scouting locations. We wandered the halls after lunch, peeking behind lockers, inspecting corners, and even checked the janitor's closet. And I don't even know why they did it. You know, we weren't gonna go there. Eventually, my cousin and Sammy settled on a corner behind the gym that was barely used. The space was perfect, out of sight of teachers, old, enough room to draw a ring, and with easy escape routes if needed. Next came the first challenge: fighting, fight, finding fighters. So, you know what we did? We recruited two people. We're gonna use them as code names: Marcus and Jalen. Two freshmen who argue constantly over pencils, erasers, and imaginary slides. They were perfect. They were aggressive. They were eager. They were clueless. They were stupid. Alright? So we cleared the chalk ring, laid out some makeshift rules, and prepared to witness history. Now, Sammy, he handled the bets. Clipboard in hand, shouting out odds, tracking ragers, and scribbled notes furiously. And I handled, not I am so sorry, why did I say that? But, and my cousin, he handled the cash, trying not to laugh as kids argued over pennies like high stakes gamblers. In the fight itself, hilarious. Mostly shoves, awkward swings. Jalen's tripped over his own feet 3 times, 3 whole times, and Marcus landed a riled elbow that barely connected. The crowd went wild anyway, and when the settled, Sammy and my cousin counted a total of $64 in bets. For that, for me and my cousin, not me and my cousin, for Sammy and my cousin, that was life changing money. Because as you know, they are poor, poor. So that night, my cousin, he was laying in bed and he realized something. We weren't just they weren't just two broke kids anymore. They were schemers, planners, and most importantly, partners in an empire that had the potential to take over their high school. And it all started with the crazy idea from Sammy. The kind of idea that could either make us legends, that the kind of idea that could either make my cousin and Sammy legends or get them expelled. But either way, you know what it is. My cousin was in. By the next morning, Sammy has already bouncing around the kid like a kid on triple espresso. He has notebook ready, chewing gum with the trademark snap snap snap. You know how he gets, and muttered ideas as if the universe itself depended on him organizing high school fights. I followed him, my cousin followed him down the hall, backpack bouncing, mentally preparing for another wild brainstorming session. Bryson, he whispered, eyes darting around. We need a system. Not just fights, not just bets, but like a real empire he was talking about. He was saying things like think bigger, think Vegas, think mob bosses. You know, but we had to keep it down low. It was that, but on a high school style. My cousin was blinking. He was confused. Mob bosses, saying like, "What are we talking about? Mob bosses? No." And exactly, we need hierarchy, rules, loyalty, control. If anyone tries to cheat, disrupt, or start drama, they deal with us. Sammy said. My cousin sighed. Sammy didn't do the sigh thing. He did the schematic brainstorming mode, which meant pacing, scribbling notes, and occasionally shouting at the walls like a tiny, eccentric general. And their first task was refining the fighting location. The corner behind the gym was good, but Sammy wanted options. We Sammy and my cousin drew maps in his notebook and labeled potential spots, and here they are. The locker alley first off. It was hidden, it was easy to clear, but it was slightly cramped, so it wasn't the best. Now, and the next one was the bathroom hallway. It was sneaky. It was good for small matches, but risky if the janitors came around. And the last one was the old storage room. It was large, good for big fights, but sometimes it was locked. Each location had its pros and cons, and we debated them like military strategists. You see, Sammy said, pointing at this messy map, the locker alley is ideal for the first week. We test the water, see how the crowds react, and then expand. And my cousin nodded away. He didn't fully understand his obsession with the maps and chalk lines, but my cousin trusted his intuition, and by now, my cousin had Sammy had assumed the role of the planner, promoter, and mob boss at once. Now, the next thing up is recruiting fighters. Sammy and my cousin, they needed fighters. They need aggressiveness. They need a willingness and slightly stupid and clueless kids who actually step into the ring. Marcus and Jalen have been a disaster and a joy, but they needed more. And Sammy made a scouting list. First, the sprinter kid. Fast but weak, and he was good for lightweight matches. And next up, the gym rat. He's big, strong, but a little clumsy, and he is perfect for the middleweight matches. And third off, we have the drama queen. Prone to theatrics, guaranteed to increase bets with the drama multiplier, whatever Sammy was coming up with. We hit the hallways during passing periods, whispering about trials, hyping matches, and carefully assessing potential champions. Sammy's charisma was ridiculous. He could convince anyone to join. He often promises things like immorality to high school underground boxing circuit if they signed up. And my cousin, he handled the logistics, tracking names, recording rate classes, and keeping a ledger and potential bets. This whole story is crazy because Sammy, I don't even know who he thinks he is right now, but it's working for him, so we're gonna keep on figuring out how it goes. By lunch, they had a preliminary fight structure. Like the first one was the lightweight matches, fast, chaotic, and ideal for early bets. Middleweight matches, strategic, more intense, and slightly higher stakes. And heavyweight matches, the big show. The audience peaks at their bet. The audience bets are at their peak. And the fourth one are the championships. They're either monthly or seasonal, where the top fighters face off to go head to head. And Sammy added his signature flair. We need drama points for every fight. The more dramatic, the higher the multiplier on bets. If someone trips, falls, screams, or yells at a hilarious insult, the cash multiplier engaged. My cousin rolled his eyes, but he secretly loved it. Loved it. It was ridiculous, over the top, and guaranteed chaos. And chaos meant attention, which meant way more bets, which meant way more money. Now, my cousin and Sammy spent hours designing a betting system that was confusing enough to sound legitimate, but simple enough for kids to understand. They printed many betting slips on notebook pages with categories like winner, knockout, first blood, most dramatic fall, and crowd reaction bonus, which Sammy insisted on the last one. And my cousin, he handled the math, and Sammy handled the hype. By the end of the day, they were confident their little operation would rake in serious cash. Well, serious enough for two broke high school freshmen. Now, we also have to have security and enforcement. You know, no empire survives without rules and enforcement. Stanley established underbosses, friends, and things like that. These friends would do things like ensure fighters follow the rules, manage crowd control, track bets, and enforce payouts. We even made a tiny code of conduct, most mostly humor, partly threats, and Sammy would dramatically read it out loud in the hallway between classes. Anyone who is caught cheating will face the full wrath of the Bryson Sammy Empire. Repeat offenders may have their dignity publicly auctioned. Kids laughed, but secretly they respected it. Even some even asked to become underbosses. Now, now we're getting on to the marketing side of things. Sammy's marketing genius was absurd. He designed secret flyers with cryptic messages like, "Do you have what it takes? Test your fist. Prove your worth." And the Underground Championships begins this Friday. Only the brave, or things like Bex accepted, drama guaranteed. He was hyping this up like it was the last fight ever. You know, he placed the flyers in lockers under cafeteria trays and slipped them in the book covers. Hype sweat split faster than my cousin anticipated. Within days, we had a few more spectators than fighters, and the small $64 win from our first match felt like a little tiny appetizer. And from the first week of operations, by the end of the week, we had 3 locations scouted and partially prepped, a roster full of 10 fighters across weight classes, and bets ready for every map. Also, we had underbosses trained to supervise and a small but growing audience. Our first real match was chaotic, hilarious, and profitable. Kids argued over pennies. Fighters dramatically um, exaggerated extra. Every swing, and Sammy thrived in the spotlight. He would leap on the bitches. Whoa, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, YouTube. He would leap on the benches, shout out odds, and ride wildly like a mini ringmaster. I don't even know. My cousin stayed in the background collecting cash and calculating payouts and silently marveling at the operation they had built. Now we have the first fight. The first fight wasn't supposed to be a spectacle, honestly. It was meant to be a test, a proof of concept. But as soon as word spread that the Bryce and Sammy boxing ring was a thing, the hype had snowballed. By Wednesday, a small crowd had gathered behind the gym. Whispers buzzed around the secret championship and the opportunity to place bets. Our fighters, Marcus and Jalen, two freshmen whose rivalry had escalated from pencil arguments to full on cafeteria confrontations. Perfect candidates, both were scrappy, stubborn, and slightly clueless about the actual fighting technique, which and honestly made it even more entertaining. Now, we drew a rough circle. Now, for the ring setup, we drew a rough circle on the gym floor of chalk, around 6 feet in diameter. Not exactly the Madison Square Garden, but it served the purpose. Sammy added his signature touches, chalk markings for corners, lines for referees to stand, and a spectator boundary so kids wouldn't get trampled. I stood by the my cousin stood by the cash box, nervously counting $47 in initial bets kids had placed. Sammy's clipboard held a full ledger, fight names, bet odds, bet types, and even a drama multiplier column, which he insisted was crucial. Remember, he shouted, this isn't just a fight, this is theater. Drama equals money. More drama equals more money. Now we get on to the bet collection. Before the fight begins, my cousin and Sammy collected bets. Bets range from a few quarters to a couple dollars, a fortune in high school terms. Categories include a winner who would take the match, knockout, predicting if someone would hit the floor first blood, who would get the small scratch first, the drama multiplier, extra payout for theatrical falls or funny insults. Kids argued over bets like professional gamblers, pointing fingers, yelling, and insisting their calculations were more accurate than others. Sammy thrived in the chaos, shouting out odds, adjusting multipliers, exaggerating payouts, and I quietly counting cash, trying not to spill any of it during the chaos. And the fight begins. Marcus and Jalen stepped into the chalk ring, glaring at each other like tiny gladiators. I swear their determination could have powered a small city. They circled each other, shoving, jabbing, and tripping over the chalk line. The first few swings were awkward and uncoordinated. Jalen tripped on his own feet, fell face first into the floor, and somehow got up again. Marcus swung wildly, accidentally hitting a trash can instead of Jalen, and the crowd erupted. Some laughing, some cheering, some clapping, and Sammy recorded every fall and trip and exaggerated yells as drama points and scribbling furiously. The fight quickly developed into comedic chaos. Marcus attempting a high kick almost fell backward, grabbing onto Jalen's shirt and pulling both of them to the ground. Kids were screaming, yelling things like drama, drama, and tossed more bets into our cash box. Sammy was ecstatic, narrating the action like a sportscaster, shouting, ladies and gentlemen, unbelievable. Drama points through the roof. Bets are paying out, cash is flowing, and history is being made. I My cousin couldn't help but laughing. The fight was ridiculous, absurd, and perfect. Now the 10 or so spectators went wild. Every stumble, slip, and accidental elbow earned more drama multiplier points. Kids started chanting, betting against each other, and debating rules mid fights. And some kids tried to jump in the rink to coach the fighters, and Sammy quickly unassigned underbosses to hold them back. It was a perfect storm, chaotic, profitable, and entertaining. Now, after about 2 minutes in mayhem, Marcus landed a wild elbow on Jalen's shoulder, sending him stumbling out of the ring. The crowd reaction was absolutely hysterical. Bets were collected, payouts calculated, and chaos controlled mostly. And Sammy tallied drama points and multiplied payouts and announced the official winner, who was Marcus. And the final take was, like I said before, $64. For two broke freshmen, it felt like winning the lottery. It was enough to buy snacks for the month, a few gadgets, and most importantly, the intoxicating taste of power. And that's where I will leave it for now. But that was just the beginning of my cousins and Sammy's underground boxing saga. Trust me, things only get crazier from here. The bets get bigger, fights get wilder, and the risks get way too real. If y'all want to hear the rest, make sure you drop a like and comment part 2 so I know you're ready for the next chapter. Until then, stay tuned because this story is just getting started. See you in the next one.